All right. Like I say, I'm having a little bit of computer difficulty today. I don't know what the heck's going on. Uh, it took forever to sign in, and then it died and then came back. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully we can get through this together. If for some reason you don't hear me or something happens, chime in and let me know that shit is hit the fan, and I'll try my best to get it figured out.
All right.
So today we are going to we're going to discuss plumbing and electrical in a home. So we're going to start with a little history. So these are Roman aqueducts, and as the Romans had, they were taking over the world, so to speak. Then they had to move water into their cities, and they built these huge, elaborate aqueducts to get that water from one place to the other. And in some cases, these were quite a few miles. And over the years, some have lasted through the times, and some have not. So these are just kind of another world of wonders to get water from one point to the other. Now these would have been open. They did not have pipe technology at the time, but most of these were open water. And the Romans also were not the only ones. The Aztecs, the Chinese, all of the larger nations of the world, the more technological nations of the world had means of aqueducts. And so, like I say, these were open water. The water just flowed through them, much like you would see in channeling creeks and stuff to what am I trying to say? A grain mill, like a water mill or something. So, all of these would have just been open water, and this technology obviously is still used today. But you can get sediment in these and dirt and all kinds of things. But one thing, that they really figured out was how to get these through mountains. And it was, really cool at the time how they could do some of these things. And it was just, this just amazing at some of this stuff. So as technology increased a little bit, we figured out how to, I've lost one, wait a minute. Yeah, I did lose one. Well, that's the wrong wooden pipe I want. There we go. So we started making wooden pipes, and we could, all of these wooden pipes, they were all over the place in, places like New York City, Los Angeles in the early days, San Francisco. And it's really cool to think that we had water coming through these wooden pipes. Now, obviously they weren't the best in the world. They would rot, or they would come apart. So, a cooper who generally makes barrels would actually be a pipe maker as well. So a cooper would have been both. And it's just, again, it's just amazing how we can take technologies, simple things like this that we take for granted, and make these things work. So obviously this was a tree that just been bored out, and they put it down under the ground, and it worked out pretty good and worked for them. I can remember wooden pipes at my grandfather's house. He did not have indoor plumbing at his house at the time, but he used very much something like this. It was, it was either a aqueduct, so it was a burnt out log. So he would take a log and he would burn the log out and just use it as to move water from one place to the other. And so it was, very crude. This wasn't necessarily for drinking or anything, Again, I really don't know what's wrong with this stupid computer, but it is taking freaking forever to do anything. So hopefully, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, let's see if I can do this another way. I'm going to go into here, go into photos, albums, and I want to show you a different thing. We actually fabricated one of these. I've showed you pictures of my little log cabin out here in the yard, and so let me just pull this up. Maybe. Oh dear God, come on. This is driving me nuts today. Well, let's see if I can get some of this to come up. Nothing. Charlotte. No Charlotte. Well, poo. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Things are just not working out the way they should today. Let's see if that thing ever came back. Yes, okay, cool. So my grandfather had, there was this creek. You had the house, and then the creek came down by the house. And what he done was he went way up here and basically burnt out a log. So we had a log here, and he had burnt out the log and basically had placed it in here to run to a small little spring house here that brought water out, and he would put his milk or whatever was that might have been vulnerable to rot or spoiling, he would put in here in this little house, and then he had another one that brought the water back over to the creek here. And it was just nothing more than just a big old log that he had burnt out. Now, at one point, he had actually taken a log like this, taken two logs. He'd taken one log, he split it, which gave him two halves, and he burnt out the two halves, and then he put them back together and held it with some wire, barbed wire actually. So he actually made a pipe. And so that would bring water in as well. What happened was he had critters that was getting in into the spring house here and getting into some of the food and stuff. So when he went back and put it in as a wooden pipe, then if any critter tried to get in here and get down through there, they'd probably drown before they ever got there. But it was crude, but it worked. So that is, basically human nature through time, is that we have started out doing what we can and with what we had and moving forward. So out west and in some other parts of the world, the only way to get water was to bring it above ground. So, if we have open water sources such as lakes and creeks, we're good. But if, like out west, they didn't have that. And so we ended up using wind turbines or windmills, not a turbine, but a windmill, to pull this water up and empty it into a storage tank, or otherwise known as a cistern. So out west, they have a lot of this going on. And nowadays, of course, we've changed a lot of this over to PV powered pumps. But, again, they can be simply made and just utilized to get the water to the surface, and then you can put it in some sort of tank or so forth. So here we have other types of windmills that actually do two things. One, it can mill grain, obviously. And secondly, because in the Netherlands, they have such a big problem with water that it actually pumps water out and away from fields and stuff and keeps the fields dry. So again, these were just simple ways that we could use to move water either in or out in such a way. So cistern, we talked about that storage tank, and there are, through the millennia, thousands of different cisterns, some very beautiful and amazing. And it was just to used to hold water so that it could be used later. And a lot of times it was underground. Nowadays, of course, we've built bigger, fancier ones. And we also have the above ground water tanks that you can get. Obviously, this is a water catchment for the house. And I want to discuss a couple of things with you. So sometimes we hear things that may or may not be 100% true. So when we talk about catching water, I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of these things on Facebook where some little old lady down in Florida was catching water off a roof, and the city government shut her down because of it. So some of these extreme people, they try to fabricate stories or take small stories, and they don't tell you 100% of the truth on it. So in the case of the Florida woman who was not allowed to catch water off her roof, it wasn't the problem that she was catching water off of her roof necessarily, but it was what she was doing with the water when she was done with it. So she was just pouring it into, and you're not going to believe this, a VW bus that was slammed full of gravel that had been buried out in the yard. So obviously it created stink in the neighborhood. It was a big health risk for the surrounding people. Her catching the water was not the issue. She was never charged with any kind of crime of catching water. However, what she was doing was dumping raw sewage back into her backyard, and that was the problem. She was off grid and not doing things 100%. You may hear another story of some guy out west who was also catching water, or maybe he had put a dam in and was being fined because he put a dam in. I think the story actually started up with rainwater catchment, but it was rainwater, but it was a creek that he had dammed up. Well, out west, everybody has water rights. And so if he had 100 acres of land and he captured 100% of that water and claimed it all for himself and didn't allow for water runoff to the people lower down the creek, then he is in violation of the water rights. And that was what was the problem there. Again, it had nothing to do with him catching the water. It was, the fact was that he was illegal in catching all the water for himself and not letting anybody else have any. So he's being selfish about it. So be real careful when you read some of these stories, especially on social media. You really sometimes are not getting the whole story on that. And I've just, with this election and everything, oh my God, at the falsities that's been shared. So, one thing that we want to do is we want to promote water catchment. We want to promote solar use and wind use. So make sure that, if you see anybody posting just silly, stupid stuff, research it, catch up on it, and see what's going on there. So nowadays we have running water in the house. Again, like I said, my grandparents, they lived and died and never had running water. They never knew what a flushing toilet was, a flusher, a john, a toilet, a water closet. In construction, in architectural world, it is called a water closet when we're talking about a toilet. So let's start off by talking about a couple of things called a drain, waste, and vent, or a DWV. Let's see if that comes up the way I want it to. No, it doesn't. Let's see if I'd say DWV maybe instead of DMV. Yes, there we go, DWV. So let's look at a drain, waste, and vent. So obviously anything that is going out is going to be waste. All right, so we have wastewater that's coming off of these and coming down and out. Now, if you'll remember back in the first of the semester, most of these went out into a septic tank. Some of them went into a sewer if you were in the city, but so this would all go into there. And then it goes and leaches into the ground. So if we do not allow for water, or excuse me, for air to get in and out of here sometimes, what we do is we drain these little P-traps here, and the smell runs back up and into the house. So to make this work properly, we've got to have some air movement in there. Hide flow, there we go. So now I've got that stupid thing out of my way. All right, so how this works, we have our vent through roof, and that is generally seen on the plan as a VTR, and that stands for vent through roof. And this vent goes down and into the house and is connected to our plumbing pipes so that we end up with some air movement in here, and then it goes on to the sewer or the septic tank. So by maintaining a little bit of water in here, then we can, this is a dam so that vermin such as roaches, ants, crickets, anything that can get into these pipes either through the soil outside or through, through the air, it keeps them from coming up through our sinks. Again, also, we get that stank coming up through here. We don't want that coming into here and coming out through here. So we allow it to come through the vent through roof and out in that direction. So without this, so if we didn't have this, what would happen is when this water, when we turn on the water in the sink or so forth, then there has to be a little bit of air in here because you know how siphoning works. Okay, so we can have a tank of water and we can have a hose, and as long as this hose is, if this point is lower than this point and we get it started, then this thing's going to pour until water drains down to this point here and it stops. That's called siphoning. What happens is all of this water up here, because it's not getting any air in here, can siphon all of this out very quickly, either in a toilet or a sink or anything. I know you've probably heard some of these in the old sink. Some of you may have had apartments that had what is called an S trap. All right, so an S trap looks like this. It doesn't have this vertical space here, and this vertical space depends on the diameter of the pipe itself. So it can be anywhere from as little as 7 inches. Most of the time they're somewhere around between 7 and 22 inches there. But that just allows for air to move, for water to move out, and for air to move in. So that makes a little flat area there so that you get that movement so that you don't suck all this dry. Well, in an S trap, the S trap will siphon itself every time. You might be lucky if you have some water in there, but you've probably seen or heard this where you get that gurgling effect, where when you turn the water off, you'll end up here gurgle, 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 gurgle. And that's what so it's trying to get air back up in here. And in the process, it's sucking all of this water out and down through the pipe there. So these are now illegal total across the board all over the United States. You cannot use an S trap at all. And you must have some sort of vertical length in there for this P-trap not to go dead, not to go dry rather. Okay, so that is pretty much all of what the drain, waste, and vent is. So basically, we've got to have air movement through here above everything. And to do so, then we can have these connections in here. Now, one thing to be said about what the code explains is that we can't have these vents here cannot be more than 8 feet horizontal distance from the stack or the air stack through here. So if this is, if this particular one here is 7.5 feet, then we're okay. This one obviously is okay for the sink here because it might be only 3 to 4 feet. But 8 feet is our maximum distance. Now let's say this. Let's say that we get into the attic here, and let's say that we have 9 feet from the stack to this outside post here. How can we fix this? Well, we can put a horizontal, what the hell am I saying? A diagonal pipe in here, and diagonal pipes count the same as a vertical pipe. So this would be eliminated completely, and we can still do this even if it's 9 feet away, even if it's 15, 20 feet away. As long as we have a slope to it, then this can work. This would go out of this, it can be much longer, but only if we have 8 feet can we have vents, and also vertical drains as well also works to the 8 feet. So both the vent and the drain has a maximum of 8 feet to the drop. So how do we, and that's inside the house. After we get out, then it's a totally different story. So in our drains, one thing that we do is we want to slope our pipe. And there is a specific slope to it, and it is 1/4 of an inch per foot. All right, so if we're thinking about that, if we were thinking about that rise over run, that would be 1/4 to 12. All right, so that means the same thing. 1/4 of an inch per foot of slope. Now, what works this math? How did they determine this? Somebody much smarter than me, or a lot more patience than me, decided that if we had a pipe here and we have waste or we have paper or whatever is in this pipe at 1/4 inch per foot, when water flows through here, the water does not run off and leave the solids, and it just carries it on down and gets it out of the way. We can be more than this, and the water is going to be running faster than this. If we go less than this, then the water is going to dam up here, and the solids are going to stay again the same, and the water will just kind of trickle across the top of it and be done, and then puddle up again, and it will never move. So 1/4 inch per foot is the magic number there to make sure that we move all of our solids down the pipe. So let's talk about material. So there are tons of different materials. We've talked about wood, and I guess I didn't get rid of it. I had it in there all along. So wood was our first material that we started using, and we switched over to the cast iron during the later 1800s, for early 1900s. We started using cast iron. Now, cast iron is a bit different than what we've been accustomed to. If you'll notice, you have this little ring in here, and on the other end of the pipe, it's just like that. So this fits into that ring, and then we have to put lead in there to seal that and make it work right. There's actually a piece of wicking, there's a term for it, and I can't think of the term for it right at the moment, that you actually put in there to keep the lead from completely running through the pipe, especially if it's a vertical pipe. And then you put the next piece into it, and then you pour this lead into it. Well, obviously, this is only going to be used for drain, waste, and vit. And I know you guys have seen this around. Actually, this is a gutter, but I know you've seen this stuff around. It's you know, we've used it for a very long time, for at least 100 years or more, but it's gone. Nobody uses it anymore. It takes so many tools to work on this. You got to have so many different types of chain breakers to cut the stuff. It's not something that you can just like cut. You got to break it. I mean, you know, and then there's, you know, tons of fittings. This stuff weighs 1,000 pounds. I mean, it is nuts how heavy this stuff weighs, and it doesn't last forever. So this kind of went the way of the dodo bird, and nobody uses it anymore. So then we moved up to a PVC pipe. So polyvinyl chloride is what PV stands for. There are two huge pipe companies. One, Charlotte Pipe, which is located in, well, I won't tell you where it's located. I bet you can guess where it's located. And Silverline. Silverline happens to be in Asheville, as a matter of fact. Silverline was started in Asheville and has continued to be in Asheville. And I don't have any pictures of Silverline, but we've had tours of that in the past, and it's a really, really good facility up there. So the making of PVC is pretty cool, is because it's actually formed. Let's try a different word. Let's try production. So there it is. So even though this is probably not the way you want it to, I know it's not the way you want it to, but I wanted to show you, when it comes out of these extruders, it is in a liquid, semi-liquid form, and it's constantly moving through here. So this is the extruder, goes out through there, and it starts out with just nothing more than PVC dust. It looks like cocaine or flour or something. And it's put through this extruder, and you've got thousands of different sizes of these extruders that it goes through, and then it goes through a water cooling base. So this actually passes through water to cool it down, and then once it gets so far, it has a little stamp that comes out, and not really a stamp, but a paint sprayer that comes out and tells it what size it is. And it's really cool to watch these. I wished I could take you guys out there. Unfortunately, this pandemic has just drove us nuts this year, but it's a really nice facility out there. And to watch them make it is really cool as well. So there's tons of, one other thing to be said. So at the Silverline plant in Asheville, they only make pipe. They make PVC pipe, and they make Cpvc pipe, and they make PEX. That's all. They don't make the connections at all. So there's tons of different types of PVC pipe connections and different sizes. There's also different thicknesses. Okay, so you've got schedule 40, you got schedule 80, and you've got sewer pipe. So this is what they consider sewer pipe. It is only about 1/8 of an inch, and it's got the holes in it. It's meant to go underground. Other ones, I'm going to save that one for. So if you can tell, let me just open this up into a bigger one, and this one as well. I'm going to be able to show you a difference here. So if you see the end of this, this is solid PVC. It's about 1/4 of an inch. It is solid PVC. This is not. This is a core. How can I? Well, you can kind of see it there. What it is, let's see if I can get a better picture of this. PVC core pipe, foam core pipe. Not much help. Section. That one maybe? Nope, that's solid PVC, solid PVC, solid PVC. There we go. All right, so this is probably a better picture because it's a different color. So if you can imagine the black is actually white and the white is white, this is what is called as a foam core PVC. So basically you have two very thin walls of non-aerated PVC pipe. All right, so that's the same as this, that's solid. And then they put a layer of aerated PVC. So the aerated means that it has holes in it. It looks like a sponge, a piece of foam or something. And what that does is it makes the thickness, it gives the thickness, and it is lighter weight. Now, it's not very strong. It's not as strong as the solid core pipe. So the solid core pipe can be used as a pressure pipe, but the core pipe cannot be used as a pressure pipe. So why do we need to have PVC as a pressure pipe? Well, believe it or not, we can use this to move water in a supply as well. So even a big 4-inch piece of pipe, can be used to move water if we need to, and it can be under pressure. Don't remember exactly what the pressure was, but the one thing, not necessarily want to worry about the pressure. What I want to worry about is the temperature. So look at this picture here. Let's look at this one here. Let me blow it up. Notice that it says that it has 280 PSI at 73 degrees. Now, what happens to pipe when it gets hot? It will melt. So this pipe is rated for 73 degrees. Now let's think about this for a minute. Let's back up here. This is the type of pipe that a lot of you have coming out of your sink in your kitchen, okay? It is also the pipe that comes out of your showers and bathtubs. And I've already spoken to you a little bit, and hopefully you know that hot water coming from a water heater is 120 degrees. All right, so 120 degree water is not necessarily going to hurt this pipe, okay? At 280 PSI at 73 degrees, that is its weak point. So hot water running through this at 120 degrees with no pressure on it is going to be okay. But now let's think about this. You cooked pasta last night and you pulled out the colander and you poured every bit of that boiling water into the sink. And over time, this pipe here is going to be all to pieces. PVC pipe distorted from boiling water. I guess if I could spell it right, I'd be okay. So what happens? This happens. It can be very obviously distorted when hot water goes through there, especially boiling water. I took a piece of pipe out of my mother-in-law's house last year. She had a new house, and I am not kidding you. That pipe looked terrible. It come off of the sink, and it went basically like that. What had happened, it had got hot, and then I guess maybe they poured cold water back into it right after pouring the boiling hot water, and this thing had shrunk in and was causing her all kinds of problems. So anytime that you pour hot boiling water into your sink from pasta, then turn on the cold water and let it run at the same time as you're pulling that boiling water down your sink. Or pour, I cannot talk today. Pour it outside. or pour it into another bucket or something. So don't pour it down your PVC pipe in your kitchen, or you will be sorry for sure. Some of the PVC pipe will have the expanded housing core on here, or the housing on it, so that you have long distances. A lot of times this type of pipe is used underground when you're moving water from either the well or the from the road in your supply line. Then you don't have to worry about all these little pieces and parts through there. So let's look at PVC pipe joints. Okay, so you can get all kinds of little connectors and fittings. That's what I'm trying to think of, fittings, not joints, fittings. So the PVC pipe fittings, they come in an array of sizes and shapes, from anything from T's to L's. So let me say something else about this. You will see this a lot in the plumbing industry. So, you know, you have a T and it is spelt T-E-E. You have elbows and they are called L's. Is that right? Or E-L-L? No, that's an eel. Maybe it is E-L-L, L's. So, you know, that's the kind of terminology that we have. You'll also see what is called sweeps. So let's say, for instance, that we have a pipe coming from a toilet upstairs, and then we're going to put a fitting in here that allows for a sink to come in from the side. Okay, so there are what is called, we have 45s. So this is what I'm talking about, is a 45. This is acceptable, but it is not recommended, okay, to say the least. So what can we use? We can use a sweep. So a sweep looks like this. And a sweep will allow this water to continue down. So whatever falls downward cannot go back up. It'll stop that because of the way the design is. And it keeps the water flowing in a downward slope at all times. Now, you can get a short sweep and add a 22-degree to it, or you can buy a long sweep, which is the whole thing. This is the long sweep, has all of that already connected to it, and it's much bigger. It's more expensive, but after you know, if you're doing a short sweep with a 22-degree, and when I say a 22-degree, I mean that, you know, it's 22 degrees from here to there. It's 22 degrees. 22 degrees. You can also get 45 degrees as well. And so that, again, those two would be 45 degrees from each other. And then the L's are 90 degrees. So it gives you an idea of how that works. So we have reducers, we've got unions. So how a union works is we glue this side on, we glue this side on, but there's a great big break in the middle of it that's held together with a big screw or a bolt, kind of plastic bolt, and there's a rubber sealant in it so that it can't leak. We use this so that we can take them apart and put them back together in places where they might have to be repaired. And so, yeah, we have reducers so that we can go from larger pipes to small pipes. This is also a reducer. This fits inside of the larger pipe, and then the smaller pipe will fit inside of this. We have screw pieces for couplings, for copper fittings, and then we have these compression Couplings, not a big fan of the compression couplings. Maybe I just don't get them tight enough. I either bust them or they leak. So I've just not had very good luck with these over the past years. When you see these type of connections here, this is not for water. This is for using PVC pipe to make a shelf or a dog bed or any number of things, but you don't see this necessarily in plumbing pipe. So when we do these tests, this, by the way, is a flange. This is a toilet flange or a water closet flange. This goes down to the ground or to the floor, and then this is what your toilet connects to. So in this case, the toilet acts as the plumbing P. Toilet. So we just have a straight pipe coming out of the toilet, and the plumbing P, or the plumber's trap, is actually made within the bowl itself. So we don't have to have that second plumber's P on there. Well, this also makes for a problem because in my case, my youngest son decided he was going to throw a bunch of Legos down into it, and when the Lego got to that little turn right there, the Lego was pretty long and it got stuck right there. So we couldn't, and then, well, it's just a little Lego, but yeah, then he uses about half a toilet paper roll of paper, and that gets in here and gets all around that piece of Lego. And we have a massive problem there, in which we had to call a plumber to get it out because I didn't have a snake. So a snake is basically, this is a snake. I don't know that I don't think so. I'm not going to blow on the end of that. So a snake, let's see if I can just do a plumber.
You don't blow on it. That's for saving your life. It's called a toilet snorkel. So
here we go. Much better. So the plumber snake, and the professional ones have power grips on them. You can buy little plastic ones like this for hair. This is great for cleaning hair out of a kitchen, a bathroom sink, or a shower toilet. And then you get the hand cranks where you can pull into the toilet and pull out hair, paper clogs and so forth. You can get fancier ones, or you can get them with you can get them with motors on them. And well, I thought that was you can get them with motors on them, and the professionals use this and cleans that really good. You've heard of Roto-Rooter. So that Roto-Rooter uses something very similar to this, and they can go through your septic pipes, and it will carve out the debris or in some cases roots and stuff that have grown inside of it, to clean that pipe out completely and have it flowing much better. Little things like this can be bought to plug down in there with a garden hose, and basically this enlarges, and then you have pressure that is going to blow whatever debris in here out. Keep in mind that most of these plumber's P's the plumber strap, these come off. A lot of these, all you got to do is get under there and just, if you drop that wedding ring or something down in there, take this off and take this off. Make sure you put a bucket underneath it, and this easily comes right off, and you can clean this out. Be ready to be disgusted, because they're usually a whole bunch of crappy stuff that's in here, and it looks horrific. Let's see if I can just show you one. I mean, it's terrible looking. Even when you think you're doing good, it still comes out nasty. Nope. I'm just not having any luck today for some reason. So anyway, you want to see it nasty, go pull it out for yourself at your house, and you're probably going to see nasty. So moving along, I'm going to close some of these so I don't have to worry about going back to them. I'll leave that one open. PVC, or CPVC rather, is our next one. This is not CPVC. It says it is, but this is gray pipe. It works a little different than CPVC. Gray pipe, you see a lot of gray pipe in mobile homes, but this is the typical CPVC. Notice here, 100 PSI at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is used for supply on the hot water side. Usually it's used on the cold water side too, but the CPVC will stand a lot hotter water than the PVC will. PVC was only 73 degrees. This is 180 degrees. It is still not 212 degrees, which is boiling spaghetti water. So even if I'm not so sure that you can get CPVC larger than 1.5 inches. So everything coming off your sink's probably about 2 inches. So it's more than likely PVC. So CPVC is going to hold your supply hot water and cold water actually, and it is exactly the same except it's a different color. So here you go. You've got PVC, and then you've got CPVC. This is polyvinyl chloride, and the CPVC stands for what? I've done forgot. Chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. Okay, sure. Chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. Okay, CPVC. There you go. And again, it has its own little fittings, tons and tons of different types of fittings, just like the CPVC, or just like the PVC, all sorts of little fittings and so forth that you can use in plumbing. And a lot of these in the CPVC have more collections of brass stuff so that you can switch from metal pipe to CPVC. So, you're going to have a lot of these different types of fitted things in here. Let me see if I can find one that is, no. I was trying to find a sweat on. There's a sweat on, I think. Let's see. Let me open it up in a larger one. Not 100% sure. Let me just do a search and CPVC to copper. Well, there we go. Well, that's yeah, I guess it is CPVC. So here we've got threadeds on one side, and then we have the glued on the other. So we can stick this in there and glue PVC to that, where we have screws over here, and they do have the sweat on, and that's what I was looking for. These are compression fittings. I think they're actually made by Shark Bite. The brand name is Shark Bite, but they just pinch on to the pipe. Let's see if I can find copper sweat. See the copper sweat on. There we go, right there. So as you can see, we're going to put a piece of copper pipe in here, and we're going to sweat that on, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. In this particular case, this union here is nothing more than a garden hose connection. So you have a male and a female garden hose, but then you have a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch CPVC here, where to it's 1/2 inch copper on the other side, and it's sweat on rather than the screw on. And there's a ton of different types of sweat on connections that you can get for the switch over. So let's say, for instance, copper. Well, let's just talk about copper. Here's copper. So copper lasts about 30 years in good water. And what I mean by good water, I'm talking city waters, water that has been filtered maybe chemically altered in some sort of way with either chlorine or fluoride or something in there, or a water softener agent. If you've got, and this is what happened to my house, my folks had a well and we had copper, and the well was sucking up minerals. I mean, we live in the mountains, so we've got tons of minerals coming through our water here. And every time it turns here, you can imagine that it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like what happens when you go to the Charlotte Motor Speedway and somebody's going too fast around a curve. So we have that copper that makes that turn. And then we have water that goes in through here and flows. All right. Then we have all of these small particles of minerals in here that weigh more than the water itself. Okay. So by mass, this mineral has more mass than the same amount of area or volume of water. So what happens is, as it goes around this corner here, all of these minerals get thrown against the corners, against the sides, and then they'll bounce off, of course. But what happens is you'll end up getting a very thin breakthrough here, and then you're just going to have water flowing out of this thing over a year. So when I said that it was, you know, they last about 30 years with good water, you know, it's not going to last 30 years with hard water. And that's most of the water that we have around here. If you're on a well, unless you have a water softener system in your house, your water is hard water. Copper is not going to be the best thing to use in your house because it will eat into it. Now, one thing that you can do to test it is you can take a metal object like your knife. That's what I usually got, my knife. And I will go through and it'll, you know, you can just run right down this edge of this pipe, just tapping it ever so slightly. And if it's good copper, it will ding. I mean, it'll go ding, 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 ding. And then when you get to a bad place, it'll go clunk. And I'm serious. You know, I know that sounds funny, but you go down through there and just go ding, 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 clunk. Then, you know, you got some thin pipe there and it's getting ready to bust. So to sweat this on, you've got to have your elbows and so forth, your T's. You know, we get a lot of the same stuff. It's just made of a different type of material on here. Then we have to clean it before we put any. This picture here is actually showing flux on it. So first of all, you can see that it's kind of scratchy and shiny right here. So we take a piece of sandpaper and we rough that up a little bit and we make it nice and shiny there. And that's getting rid of all of the oxidation that's over here. So when, in other words, you see that how nice and shiny this is, how terrible and kind of dull this is. So this has oxidized, and we've got to clean off all of that oxidation before we can apply our flux. And the flux is a chemical that allows the tin solder to connect to this pipe. We don't want to use lead solder. That was a problem that they had when copper first came out. Was plumbers were just grabbing regular old solder that has a lot of lead content in it. So it's, you know, it's a lead and tin mixture to make it fluid. But then, you know, people were getting sick from lead poisoning. So this has to be a lead-free, and you do that, you know, you've got to paint the solder on the insides and outsides, depending on what all, the flux rather, on all surfaces it's going to touch. You got to clean the insides of them as well as the outsides of them. So you can get these special little brushes to help you clean the insides of them. And then you're ready to start soldering. So to solder, you've got to heat up this area here, the whole area, because it will steal your heat away. And so you've got to kind of keep moving this torch back and forth. So you're going to have to do all of these areas. And in this particular one, they're talking about the wood scorches there. You can easily put wet rags, basically just take a wet rag and wrap around here if it's not too close. and a wet rag behind you with a couple of thumbtacks or something, and you're not going to scorch the walls of the wood. You don't want to do that, by the way. And so you get this nice and heated up, and then when you touch your you touch your solder to this, it will suck into it like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's just like turning on a vacuum cleaner. When it gets to the right temperature and the flux is doing its job, it's going to suck in here, and you can almost do these joints and not even see the solder, and it be a perfect joint. If you got a whole bunch of solder coagulating down through here, then you're wrong. Something's wrong. You need to take that back apart, clean it up, and start again. So copper soldering or sweating is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes a little bit of practice, and I really wish that we could have done some of that this semester. Hopefully, if any of you are going to be taking the solar technologies class with me, you'll get to do some of this in that class. Hopefully, we'll be done with this pandemic soon enough, and we'll be able to sweat some stuff on there. Black pipe was a metal that was used in houses for a while, but you can, when you go to Lowe's, you can see the black pipe next to the galvanized pipe. The black pipe will rust. Galvanized pipes will rust too, but the black pipe will rust quicker. So then we started going to the galvanized pipe, and we found that it rusts almost as good as the black pipe does, and it tastes like shit. So if you've ever tasted water that went through a galvanized pipe, it has a very bitter taste to it. And so that was one of the reasons why, or that and the rust was one of the reasons why that we got away from that. You don't necessarily get a whole lot of taste with copper. Some people swear by it that you can. I can't, but the galvanized, but I can tell you every time that it tastes in the galvanized. So let's see, what have I forgot? Let me go back through my little list here. Drain, raised vent, pipe, material, size, vent distance, talked about that, slope, and core inch per foot slope. So Pex Pipe. So let's talk about Pex Pipe. That was one thing I forgot. Pex Pipe is the newest, greatest plumbing type of pipe in the home. So when we're talking about PVC or Cpvc, we have to glue this. Oh, and so let me say something else about this too. Primer. So when you're doing the PVC, when you're doing the Cpvc, there is primer. Now, you can get it in a clear primer, and it says for PVC and Cpvc. If you use the clear primer on any of your plumbing fixtures, and the building inspector comes in, he is going to turn you down because he can't see that you've primed it. That's why it's purple. Always buy the purple primer, and you can't fool them. If you've used clear primer and then glue, and then you go back over it with purple primer after the fact, it will leave or it won't take where the glue and everything has been. So it's kind of like saying, oh, look here, I didn't put purple primer on it, and I went back and I put purple primer on it, and I'm trying to cheat you out of it. So you got to use the purple primer the first time around, hands down. No, and it does make a mess. It gets all over you. This stuff is it's almost pure alcohol. Don't be drinking it. It will, just as soon as you break that cap right here, as soon as you open it up, it's all over you. So whenever you mess with this purple primer, be prepared. Don't have good clothes on. It will stain your hands. It's going to make a mess, and it's hard as hell to clean off. So when you're using the glue, there are two types of glue to use. There is special, so you can use the purple primer for PVC and Cpvc, but you can't use the glue. The glue is specially formulated for Well, this is wrong. Don't go by that. Okay, so the orange is CPVC. If the building inspector comes on site and sees that you've used all-purpose, he may turn you down. But the red is what I've been in the past, has always been for PVC. maybe it is if you have this on site and you've used it for PVC, you're okay. But if you use it for PVC, he'll count you. The orange has to be used for the PVC, Cpvc, before it will be accepted by the building inspector. Maybe that's what it is. The red, all-purpose, can go for PVC, but the orange has to go for Cpvc. And that could change from one to another inspector. I don't know what. I've noticed that my friend Gus, he works out of McDowell County, and the McDowell County inspectors are a lot more, they're a lot more stickler on things than the Burke County is. And if you build anything inside the city of Morganton or Asheville, might I add, you better beware, because they're looking for everything to go wrong. So you got to really pay attention to the types of glue that you use. So the copper, you've got to use flex. You got to clean it. You got to use flux rather, and then you have to use a non-lead solder to connect those pipes. So let's talk about PEX. PEX gets away from glue totally and completely, and all of them are either plastic or copper connections. This is that shark bite type connection that I was telling you about that works with PEX. Again, I'm not a big fan of this. I like the crimp type. So these are brass connections, and then you have this ring that goes on there. And let's see if I can find a picture of that. So they work quite a bit better than the shark type, even though this one broke. So this is what I'm talking about. So you have those brass connectors that go on there, and then you can see how the brass barbed connection on there, and then this little ring that goes around there and clamps on there. I've had better luck with that in the past. All of these colors are the same. You can buy it black, white, and red, and I mean white, red, and blue, and Silverline carries these. They make 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch white, red, and blue. Now, what's the difference? Nothing, the color. The only thing that is, and I like it, is I can color code stuff. So I know that this is blue, this is cold water, and this is hot water. That's the only differences that I know of. And, obviously, if you've got some big manifold like this, then it can really help you out, is to make sure that hot goes to cold and hot goes to red and cold goes to blue. So, and it's just, it's cool. It makes it look good. You can do a professional job. Now, when I say a professional job, you can also do an unprofessional job. Pex Pipe, bad job. And when you do a bad job, it looks horrible. This is a bad job. Okay. Way too much going on here. And these could have been done a lot better. This would not pass. This would fail. Obviously, this is just it's a hallway full of just PEX pipe. But if you walk into a job and it looks like that, you're going to fail. So, they don't want to see these corner joints on here like this. They much rather see this. All right. It's going to be hidden in the wall. You're not going to see it. There's nothing going to leak in this curve. This, every one of these joints could leak. There's a possibility. I'm not saying it will, but there's a possibility of it. So PEX is, like I say, is the best thing going nowadays. It's the new thing. And so even a homeowner could probably buy the materials and stuff needed to do this and could do a fairly good job at it. Before I go on any further, any questions whatsoever about pipe? Is there any anything that you want to bring up that maybe I forgot, that I didn't cover, that maybe you have a question in?
No, sir. Not me.
Nobody? I'll make sure that everybody's still here. Okay, good. Whew, hey. All right, good. Everybody's still there. It's awful quiet. You guys ain't talking to me. Maybe I'm just running my mouth too much today.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so let's take a short break, about 5-minute break, and we'll come back and start talking about electrical stuff. Okay, so during this break, if you think of anything, let me know. Okay, so.
While you're on the break, do you mind?
I can see your mouth, John, move, but I can't hear you.
Oh, do you mind opening up the finishes and the steel frame, like the finishes?
Still can't hear you, John.
No. Why can't you hear me?
Oh, you know why I can't hear you? Because I had my volume turned off.
Oh, hey.
So before I go any further, did anybody ask a question before and I didn't hear you?
I didn't think anyone was there, but do you mind opening up the finishes section on Moodle?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. See you in 5.
Okay, so did anybody have any questions on plumbing that I just didn't hear? When I was on my phone, I turned the sound off. And so, man, I just sat here thought, and I was thinking I could have just been talking and talking and talking. And you guys could have just went out for a beer or something, and I would have never known it. God. Woo. Okay, so yeah, well. All right, so we'll be back. Let's see. It is, what time is it? It is 3:09. We'll come back at 3:15, about 5 minutes. Okay.